They felt the pain. Now they can taste the champagne.
Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Komet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. Welcome back. How was your trip stateside?
Oh, my trip was pretty good. I definitely, I had a lot of fun on my trip, but I got to tell you, I felt like I was missing out a little bit with everything going on at Spruce Meadows. So, but you know, that's how it goes. And I'm actually looking forward to hearing all about your experiences about the game there. I'm a little caught up on sort of what happened over the weekend, but it sounded like from before we started recording, it was a fun weekend.
Yeah, it was a very Cavalry-centric weekend for me last week. It started with the CPL Awards on Thursday night, and that was followed by the pregame media event at Spruce Meadows on Friday morning, where we got to watch a bit of both teams practice, as well as their pregame press conferences. That led into the fan event at the Elephant and Castle on Friday night, which was a lot of fun. And then, of course, the big game on Saturday, which I'm sure we'll talk much about this episode. So I'm excited to get into it.
So if you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
So the YYC Soccer Podcast focuses on soccer in Calgary. We talk about it at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels, discussing the teams and players from Calgary's soccer community, all the way from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional teams.
And no surprise, this week is going to be pretty Cavalry-centric episode. We're going to talk about the championship final, and we're going to have some audio from some of the press conferences. We're also going to talk about Mount Royal Cougars men's team. They were at Nationals last week. We'll talk about some other U Sports Calgary connections and some NCAA Calgary connections, and also a couple of Calgary Wild player signings.
Yeah, we saw the Wild unveil 2 homegrown players the other day. So we'll get to that, but let's start off today's episode with discussion about Cavalry's big win over Forge.
Hi, this is Tobias Waszewski. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So the CPL final was at Spruce Meadows this past weekend. And as we mentioned in the intro, I wasn't able to make it, but Scott, you were there. So why don't you take us through what happened in that match, and we'll go from there.
Well, where do I start? I mean, the game itself was definitely interesting. Cavalry came out swinging, to use, I guess, boxing terminology. They played with a lot of intensity at the start of the game. They were spurred on by a record crowd at Atco Field. More than 7,000 fans were there to cheer on Cavalry. Took a 1-0 lead through a penalty kick just after the half-hour mark. Tobias Waszewski was fouled in the box. He stepped up to take the kick, scored it. Fans went pretty crazy after that. Just a few minutes later, Sergio Camargo doubled Cavalry's lead, latching on to a pass from Waszewski and Cooley slotting it into the bottom corner. At halftime, it seemed like Cavalry was, they were laughing. They were outplaying Forge. Forge had only had, I think, 1 shot on net. Cavalry boasted most of the possession and chances. But, this is Forge we're talking about, and they managed to pull one back pretty early into the second half off a goal from Alexander Ashinyoti Johnson. And for the remaining half an hour plus, I mean, there was a lot of fingernail biting in the stands and on the Cavalry bench, I'm sure, because Forge was pressing for that equalizer and Cavalry had to hold their defensive lines. But they managed to do that, and after a 7-minute period of added time, final whistle blew, and Cavalry FC were, for the first time in their 6-year history, CPL playoff champions.
I know that at the start of the game, Cavalry really came out flying, and I know that for a good chunk of the game, they clearly looked like the better team out there. So I think that they were obviously well prepared, and they were more informed than Forge, and it showed in this match. And the fans, the atmosphere, the everything, it all seemed to come together very nicely in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. They were healthy. And yeah, they just took it to Forge right from the opening kickoff. You're right, Forge did not come into this game in good form at all. They did beat Ottawa the week before, but before that, they'd actually lost their 3 previous games and hadn't scored any goals. Or maybe one of those games was a draw, but they had gone 3 games without scoring. So they were on a little bit of a scoreless run, and then qualified for the final. And, despite Forge having always shown up when it matters, when it comes to the CPL finals, on this day, they just didn't seem to, it didn't seem to click for them, at least in the first half. And when you go down 2-0 and you're the away team, I mean, you're really up against it. Credit to them for picking up their performance in the second half, but credit as well should go to Cavalry's defense for, holding off that Forge attack and continuously, clearing the ball. And even though, Forge had the run of play in the second half, Cavalry did have arguably the better chances. They had a couple of attacks on the counterattack, especially, toward the very end of the game. And Forge's goalkeeper, Jassim Kalalet, had to make some pretty impressive saves to prevent Cavalry from scoring a third.
It just seems like if you were trying to write an ending to the season and for it, having it all come together and tied up in a nice package and with a happy ending, this seemed to be it. So kudos to Cavalry. Obviously, we go to games all the time. We're pretty familiar with a lot of the people involved, with the team, some of the players on the pitch, but also some of the other staff. And I couldn't be more happy for any of those folks. Like, I think that it's, as a fan, it feels pretty good to watch them win. But yeah, I think it's nice to see there's a lot of people there that, I think this is well deserved for them and good for them.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a very long time coming for Cavalry fans to see this moment happen. And, I like to think I watch Cavalry with a pretty objective lens. I try not to act like a fan too much. But when that final whistle blew and you saw, Marco Carducci and Sergio Camargo embracing and crying and watching the players run around, hugging everybody in sight, and knowing the journey that it has taken to get to this point for them, like, I have to admit, I felt a bit emotional, like I was really proud of these guys for, finally pulling it together. They've been in the final twice before, hadn't been able to make it happen. And this year, they did. So, it was a really emotional post game, and watching them lift the trophy in front of so many fans, it's easy to think back, like, 10 years ago, none of this seemed possible. And 5 years ago, when they fell at the final hurdle, it made fans and people wonder, like, when will they get another chance? And when will they get their hands on this trophy? And yeah, here we are 5 years later, and they managed to make it happen.
In the post-match press conference, Scott, you were there and you got some pretty complete audio from a couple of key Cavalry figures. So we're going to run some of that now. I think we're going to start with Marco Carducci. And what we've done here is some of the sound quality on some of the questions wasn't quite so clear. So we've kind of edited it together so that it's Marco's complete answers, which came in quite nicely. So you won't hear the questions, but you'll hear the answers. Scott, you want to add in anything else about it before we run the Marco interview?
I think you could probably tell what a lot of the questions were based on the answers, but as you could expect after a championship win, most of the questions were essentially like, how does it feel to have achieved this after losing in the final twice before? So let's run that audio from Marco now.
This is Marco Carducci, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
They're good. I'm covered in champagne, so I think that pretty much tells it all. No, but it feels amazing to do this at home in front of our fans. It's what we knew was special about hosting, and it feels great. First of all, it was incredible. So, thank you to everyone who came out. Thank you to the city for getting behind us. Well done to the backroom staff for, putting this together in 2 weeks. It was a special type of game to play in. I go back to this a lot, but it's important to me. I'm from the city. So to be able to play here at home in an atmosphere like that was really special. To cap it off with the win was great. So it just feels phenomenal that the fan helped us through. I think there was time where the momentum, they pushed us through. And then when we had to dig in near the end, we held them at our back too. So it just feels awesome. To concede a goal that early in the second half obviously wasn't ideal, but we started so well, and the team, we showed how good we are, and how good we can be when our patterns were flowing, the guys were moving, our press was unbelievable. I was more or less a spectator in the first half, which is always what I want to be, but it's a final, and Forge are a high quality team. They've been here every season. They've won this thing 4 times for a reason, and we knew that it wasn't going to be a walk in the park in the second half. We just showed, I think, what we showed all year. Different ways to win, resilient, right? And we had to dig in. End of the day, it's about winning the match. We did that. It was emotional. It was, the embrace at the end was emotional. It was a special moment. Sergio, beyond being a teammate of mine for the last few years, is also a very dear friend. And to do this with him, someone who's been here since the start, those are the things you can't really put into words. And to see his reaction and to see how well he played, he was phenomenal for us in the first half. He got that goal. It felt, I guess, like relief that we finally got over the hill. We got it done. And to share a moment like that with him, not something I'll forget. I don't think I made any predictions. I was focused on just making sure I was prepared for the match. But I think we created so many chances in the first half that there were tons of players who probably could have got their name on the score sheet. But to have Serge score, and of course Toby as well, I think is very fitting. Again, hard to find the words. It's a special feeling. I think I'd go first to the fact that I got to hoist the trophy with my brothers behind me, with my family, with my friends all around, with 7,000 people who've been supporting us all year, with the city at our back. It's extra special. I think we've been close. We've been close before, and that pain, that difficulty of not getting over the line lives obviously in some of us who've been in those moments. So a great sense of relief and just, again, a real privilege to do it. Of course, I think the mentality we had as a team, though, beyond the history, is to be the best, you have to be the best. Tommy says it a lot. We believed it. We knew winning a CPL championship meant going through Forge. We had to do it away at their place 2 weeks ago. We did it again today. They're a very good team. And they showed that again today, that they were able to stick into that match and make it difficult for us. But yeah, you wanna test yourself against the best. To be able to get it over the line finally feels very good. Well, first of all, I would extend that to the whole team. The guys in front of me, the press was unbelievable. We suffocated that. We made it difficult. Again, Forge are a high quality team, and we made it extremely difficult for them to play in the first half. Starting with Toby. Then again, people look at the goals he scored in the season, the goals he scored in playoffs, and that is a big part of why he's so good. That's why he's the MVP of this match, and he's a key part for us. But he does much more than that too. His ability to win balls, second balls, the pressure. Today he had to do that role. We wanted to support him, but yeah, he was immense, and proud of him. He's been phenomenal for us all year. To cap it off with a goal and a performance like that feels great. Yeah, again, you go back to the fact that we've been here before, but we haven't gotten over the line. So at the end of the day, we were playing the defending champions, and you had to respect that. But we were in our health, and I think we've shown since, again, all year really, but especially the halfway point of the year, how great this team is. We lost 4 times in the regular season and showed that we were a refuse to lose type team. We embraced that mentality as we came to this game, and we knew we wanted to put on a show. The mentality as a team was, of course, it's final, but it's 90 minutes of football. Not much else changes in terms of that, right? So it was awesome to see that we kept that mentality through. We took the front foot and we brought the game to that. Yeah, like I said, it means everything to us, and I'm glad you asked that question because when we were celebrating out there as players, you recognize that there's so much more to a football club than just you on the field. I think the staff, the Jays, the Knicks, the Masons, everyone who's been a part of this since day one, and even those who you guys don't know their names, but the people who make this work. This doesn't happen without them, and they're part of the team just as much as I am, or Sergio, or anybody else. So to be able to win it at home with so many familiar faces, with so many people who've been with us since day one, or at least been on this journey, it's extra special. And again, there's so many names I could point out right now, but this is a team effort. It goes beyond just the guys on the field. We talk about the guys who've been here since day one, but on the field it was just Sergio and I. So those 2 players out of a squad of 25, give or take. I think that tells a lot about the culture of this club and this team. And that's something I take a lot of pride in as someone who's been here since the beginning. We brought in guys, like you mentioned, the Jays, the Diegos, in the last couple of years, your Shanice, everybody. This team, top to bottom, had to dig in and do that work together. I think we, again, really pride ourselves in the culture of this group and what it means to be a player for Cavalry. But we brought in some tremendous music when these guys showed themselves today. Of course, Topi all year long has been phenomenal for us. So yeah, it really is a culture thing for us. It's about coming in and then being a big part of this group and then fitting right in, and then the individual quality showed. So credit to the staff for bringing in those players and for them to do what they did all year long.
This is Dan Quinn, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Okay, and now we're going to run the post-match press conference comments from Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Yeah, kind of the same format. We're going to have the answers, not the questions. I think, as you said, Scott, pretty self-explanatory. The one I couldn't completely follow was there was a question asked about a player, and Tommy makes a comment about them, and that was referring to Tobias Warshevsky about keeping around all winter, staying at his house. So that's something to that effect.
Yeah.
Is that right, Scott?
Yeah. He was joking about not wanting to leave him out of his sights, considering how well Tobias Warshevsky had played in the final. So let's run that audio from Tommy Wheeldon Jr. now.
This is Tommy Wheeldon Jr., and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. Honestly, I don't think I can explain. I don't have the words. It's surreal to do it in front of our fans, to be always Cinderella, and to show the resilience to do it. I thought the first half performance was high level. It was outstanding. It was entertaining. It was cutthroat. It was fun to watch. It was aggressive in our press. And second half, we knew, listen, they're the defending champions. They're going to come out. But to lift in front of our fans, our family, all the people that come with us, it's a special moment. And most importantly, this is the Southern family. This is our most important people here that believed in us, believed in supporting the game, believed in Canadians. And I could be thankful to them and also to all the fans that have shared this with us. Yeah, you need insurance goals against Forge. When we went to their place, we won 1-0 and were able to see it out. But 2 gave us an opportunity that if a call went our way, if a moment went their way, and it did, and it tested us, and we had to change, and we had to adapt, and the way the guys went in and saw it out and had moments, but they fought for each other out there, and they fought for this city. And I tell you, honestly, I couldn't be so proud. Yeah, listen, they're great champions. Honestly, I said this before. This is one trophy our way. We felt we were the better team last year, but results don't always go your way. To beat the best, you have to beat the best, and we did today. So to be able to call ourselves champion for winning the last game of the season is pretty cool. Yeah, what a player. One thing I'm going to let him out my sight. I think he's going to stay with me and my family for Christmas this year. Yeah, it's been an emotional year. I'm not going to lie. I'm wearing the hat of my father-in-law who passed away this year. Had it not been for this league, we wouldn't have saw him before he passed. We went to Kelowna. He lives in Sycamore. I'm so thankful we had that opportunity to say our goodbyes. He was here with us. Before that, we'd lost a good friend of ours, Tim McKegney. His family loved this club. They were here. I wear his socks they had gifted me before this season. He was here at CONCACAF and then sadly passed away. Dylan Powley and my dog, Poppy. It's been a tough year. So my family have seen all the things you guys don't get to see. And for us, they're after my coaches that helped me, they're the ones I want to go to because they're the ones I love with all my heart because they see the suffering, they see the pain. But I tell you, I'm so thankful for the league. I'm so thankful for these young men that give me a purpose every single day. Do you know what? Sergio's done so much thankless work for the team. He's a real leader, like he's an emotional leader. And we just fancy him. Even my brother called it to me. He said, Sergio scored today. Because he just knew that there'd be a lot of focus put on Ali Musi, a lot of focus put on Toby Warshevsky, and he'll find a way. And I thought he was outstanding. And it was a shame we had to bring him off because he was hurt. But he deserves this. He's getting married this year, and what a wonderful way for him to finish this season to lead into his new chapter in life. He's a terrific human. I'm glad to have been part of his journey. Well, I've had champagne thrown in my face for the last half an hour, so my answers might be a little wonky, but we got to savor these moments. Winning is hard. I said this in the pre-press conference. We've been at the doorstep over and over. We won the regular season last year. But this is way more fun. I thought he was terrific. He's been a great injection of energy. You look at Lowell Wright that was on the end, but we talk about these players that can make an impact. And I said to them before, look, if you get the opportunity to be a hero, be a hero. And there was a lot of heroes out there that did thankless tasks. Jay was terrific. And, he was part of many guys that played out of their skin today. I love those guys. I said this before this week. I got the best job in the world because I get to build something really special, a wonderful place with incredible ownership, a city like Calgary and the owners. We're a resilient group. But those guys, Nick Ledgerwood, I tell you, everyone thinks he's a hard guy. You didn't see the pre-game speech. And a real man can show their emotions. And he showed how much he cared. And he said some really poignant words. The last thing he said to our group before he walked out onto the pitch to warm up, I never had this growing up. It's a kid that came from Lethbridge that didn't have it. And that's what the Southern family have helped build. That's what we as the caretakers and the drivers of it are continuing to do. It's far from over. We're just the beginning. But him, my brother Jada, come on full time this year. They're incredibly insightful behind the scenes. And the fact that they've bled for the shirt, they felt the pain. Now they can taste the champagne. I think it's happening. I think the city of Calgary, the province of Alberta, wants a champion to be the best in the country. Apparently, we're called champions now, so we are the best in the country. If you win the last game of the season, we're going to save it. We're going to savor it. We're far from done. There's a hunt on. We said if we wanted to end the dynasty, we have to get in that way, and we've started that. We have to carry on. We have to enjoy the moment. We take what did your dad used to say? A day to celebrate, a day to bleed, and then we move forward. But I'll tell you what, we're going to have a hell of a party tonight, and we're going to keep spreading the word because these young men that go out into the community, that coach for different youth soccer clubs that are out seeing there, they're terrific. Jeez, good question. Yeah. Mike Van Dale, my dad, brought me over, came to visit, ended up staying to play. We were the worst team in the USL, Vancouver Whitecaps, Seattle Sounders, Montreal Impact. And I had an opportunity to be a journeyman footballer or get my head down and be a coach. And I fell in love with this city, the people. My wife and kids are from here. I'm proud to be Calgarian, and I wanted to help give back to a country and a city that have given to me. So did I think it could happen? I'm a believer. So I always believe that something could happen. I always believe we're going to be a champion. And I think perseverance is the key factor in that. Yeah, I saw Colin Mackay. Colin Mackay is an old colleague of mine at Calgary Footos, and I think he was there when we won in 2009, the year my son Jax was born. We won national championships together. He just did the same thing for his Calgary Footos team in the summer. And it's funny because he was one of the first to grab me on the pitch. Yeah. Put us in a competition and we'll find a way to win it. It might not always be the first try. It might not be the second try. It might have to be the third try. But we'll find a way to win it. And I think, again, I said perseverance, but this today is the most special feeling because, like I said, it's so I see the work the boys doing. It wasn't an easy start to the season, but good people came together, and I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of everyone to be here. So to raise it in front of our family, this has to be number one. The race is on, right? I told you this was an ongoing war. It could be called a trilogy. We're going to win it, and we're going to chase the next one. We have to. No club has won the double. We had the opportunity last year to be the regular season winners and the playoff champions, and we didn't get there. They had the same. So no one's done it. We're going to hunt it. We're going to chase it and keep writing new memories. Because what was it? The words of Natasha Bedingfield? Well, rest is still unwritten. I'm so proud of the originals. I'm so proud of the guys like your Dan Clonts and Tom Fields, and Tom didn't get on today. They joined us midway through. Your Callum Montgomery's that's fought off injury to start playing and was phenomenal today. Your Marcos and your Sergios. The list goes on and on. But what's really cool about it, and this is why it fits with everything I'm winning, is Toby Wolszewski, Jay Herdman, and Diego Gutierrez have the best playoff record of any CPL player. 100% win record. It's pretty cool.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Hi, this is Ali Musi, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right. So once again, a big congratulations to Tommy, Marco, and the rest of Cavalry Football Club for winning the CPL's North Star Cup in 2024. A couple things we didn't mention before running that audio that we should, but Dan Klomp retained his Defensive Player of the Year award on Thursday night. Tobias Warshevsky, as we've already talked about, received the Golden Boot Award. And he also received the inaugural final MVP award after scoring a goal and getting an assist in the final on Saturday.
That wraps up the Cavalry season on the pitch, but there's definitely going to be some things to talk about off the pitch that we're going to be focusing on the next couple of weeks or so. Topics such as who's going to stay, who's going to go, what's going to happen with Dan Klomp. These are all questions that I think we'll want to get to. I think for the purposes of this week, I think probably just good to sort of bask in the moment and just not think too far ahead. But those are going to be things that need to be thought about, and we'll probably banter on and talk about that, speculate on some of that. And then there's the U Sports draft coming up in early part of December, and also the Champions Cup draw will be in the early part of December. So that could be interesting too.
Yeah, it's going to be a really short off season for Cavalry once again. We'll find out on December 10th which team they'll be playing in the first round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and it could be Inter Miami, which would mean a date with Lionel Messi, assuming he stays with the team. Very excited to see what happens in the weeks to come.
Hi, this is Miguel Da Rocha, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So let's turn our attention to U Sports, and the U Sports season wrapped up this past weekend with national championships and awards. And the one Calgary-based team that was involved in nationals was the Mount Royal University Cougars.
Yeah, the men's Cougars made it back to nationals for the second year in a row. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it happen out in, I believe it was in Oshawa, Ontario, this year's tournament. Their first matchup was a really tough battle against the Montreal Carabins, who were second ranked nationally heading into this tournament. And the Carabins won this one 1-0 to advance to the semifinals. And then the Cougars, their next match was essentially a consolation game against St. FX, and they lost this one as well, 2-1.
As far as who the ultimate champions were, it was the UBC Thunderbirds.
Yeah, and I was surprised at how long it had been since they won their previous national championship. I think it was like 2008 or 2013. For some reason, those years are in my head. But a lengthy wait for the T-Birds to win the national championship. And as we've mentioned before, Jason, there are a lot of Calgary players on the Thunderbirds this year.
Yeah, and I think there are three players in particular that I think, we want to highlight because all three of these players they weren't just members of that team. They were regular starters. And that was Brendan Fierst, Noah Herdlicka, and Marcus Kaiser. All three of these players started every match in the championship tournament, and they all played every minute of the championship tournament. So three obviously very key players. Congrats to them. And yeah, I think the Calgary connection, they had Sebastian Zitkowski last year. There is a real strong connection between that program and the city of Calgary and area.
For sure.
When it comes to the end of the year national awards, there wasn't a huge amount of players with Calgary connections, but there was one on the men's side that we were going to mention, Owen Antonia from the Dinos. He was a second team All-Canadian.
Yeah, he had a tremendous year for the Dinos, so I wasn't too surprised to see that he got some individual recognition. I don't have his stats in front of me, but I know he was heavily involved with the UFC's attack and scored lots of goals and got a decent amount of assists as well. So congrats to Owen, who appeared briefly on our podcast at one point after the Crowchild Classic. And I'm sure he's going to be, a formidable force for this team if he stays on it for the years to come.
Let's move over to the women's nationals. And, I don't know how often this has happened. I didn't do the research on it, but UBC they swept both sides of it. They won the men's and the women's side.
Yeah, and I'm not too surprised by this, honestly. They had such a dominant season in Canada West. And again, similar to the men's, they have at least one Calgarian on their team, and this would be Josie Claypool.
She was a regular starter on that team. For awards, with Calgary connections on the women's side, no Dinos or Cougars made any of the All-Star teams, but there was one Calgarian represented, and that was Julia Larada. She was on the all-rookie, all-Canadian team, and she plays for Thompson Rivers.
Hi, this is Grace Doherty, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So we saw two more signings from the Calgary Wild this week, and after initially announcing a pair of international players, the Wild opted to unveil two homegrown signings this week. And Jason, one of our predictions came true.
Yes, Grace Doherty is now officially a member of the Calgary Wild, and what I think is somewhat unsurprising news. It just made so much sense. She is exactly the kind of player you would expect to be on this club, and the fact that she never went off to Europe this fall to try her luck again to see if she could latch on to another club also kind of made me think that she was likely to end up with the Wild.
Yeah, and then the other local player that the Wild announced, honestly, a player I didn't know too much about, Jason, but goalkeeper Sarah Kelty-Dilling is now a member of the team.
Yeah, like we haven't really talked about her too much on the podcast, but my sort of understanding is she's been kind of like a rock for the Foothills with the UWS team over the years. You know, she's been kind of the main go-to goalkeeper. I believe she's 31 years old. So she's been around for a while, and she played college soccer. I think it was in Texas. But anyway, sort of where we're at is she's been kind of one of those veterans. She falls into that same category as like a Sarah Kinsner type, where they've been kind of hanging around over the last several years and are kind of into their late 20s and early 30s. But, you know, players that, you know, should have been playing at a higher level realistically, but all that's really been available to them has been, you know, UWS. But yeah, I think she'll be a good addition to this team. And
yeah, and you're right. She played her college soccer down in Texas, NCAA's Division I team, the UTEP Miners in El Paso, and she also earned All-Star honors for FC Tucson in the Women's Premier Soccer League. Now she has an opportunity to show her talents in her hometown. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, and I would say I'm still going to stick with Talia White and Sarah Kinsner are going to get announced here at some point. It just, again, seems like it makes sense.
This is Mila Schneider, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
We wanted to provide another NCAA update, in particular about the two teams on the women's side that we've been following pretty closely. The University of Maine, they won the America East Conference regular season title, and this past weekend they won the playoff tournament as well. So they are now off to the big national tournament, and their first match is Friday evening. So later today, if you're listening to this on release day, which is Friday, they'll be playing the University of Wisconsin on their home turf. So that's going to be a tough one, but it's nice to see them make another appearance in the tournament.
Yeah, and one more main Calgary connection thing we can bring up is Mila Schneider, our former podcast guest, was named the most outstanding player in the America East Conference Championship after Maine did not concede a single goal throughout the tournament.
And the other team we've been following pretty closely is the University of Memphis Tigers with their Calgary connections. They won their regular season conference title, and then they had their conference playoff tournament. And in the final match against East Carolina University, it went to double overtime, but they lost 1-0. So they did not repeat as conference playoff champions this year. They were ranked like most of the year, like in the top 20. So there was the possibility that they could get one of those at-large non-conference winner berths, but the brackets filled out and they were not selected. So their season is over.
Looking at some of the Calgary players that are on this team, you have to think that pipeline is going to continue next year with the likes of Anna Hauer and Izzy Monk still having some years of eligibility left.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links on our website on how to buy Scott's book about Calgary soccer history online. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website, or you can interact with us on social media, such as Twitter or Instagram or Blue Sky, where I believe we've gone from 4 followers to 80 some followers in a matter of days. I guess that's the whole people signing up for Blue Sky effect. Our username there in all those social media platforms is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.